Anybody who knows me at all knows that I love sports. And if you know me at all, you know I love to win. No one bristles more than me when I hear someone say winning doesn't matter. If that comes within earshot, I bristle. And as parents and coaches, we naturally want our children to succeed. But how do we balance our very real desires for them to be the best with ensuring that we focus on their formation as the whole person? Pope John Paul II was, I think a lot of you know, a sports lover, and he explored some of these challenges in a homily in October 2000 on a Jubilee for sports people. He said, "Playing sports has become very important today since it can encourage young people to develop important values such as loyalty, perseverance, friendship, sharing, and solidarity." But he also, I think wisely, acknowledged that an examination of conscience is necessary to ensure that sports achieves these positive outcomes without avoiding the pitfalls. He went on to say, "The educational and spiritual potential of sport must make believers and people of goodwill united and determined in challenging every distorted aspect that can intrude, recognizing it as a phenomenon opposed to the full development of the individual and his enjoyment of life." So how should we reconcile our desire to win with our desire to keep sports in their proper place in our lives? And the way I've attempted to do that is with our gems. The one most specifically, the M for meekness. And that's the one, they all hit this point, but that's the one where I attempt to hit it head on. You've heard me talk a lot about meekness, but today I want to explore it just a little bit further, and then I want to explore how can we be more meek? What tools do we have? What does it take to become truly meek? So let's start by reviewing what is meekness. Some of this you've heard, some of you haven't. I know you've heard before my definition of meekness, right? Meekness is neither timidity nor capitulation. Meekness is the spiritual strength to help your opponent over the bar that you raised by winning. Now, and that's the way I try to, I think successfully, square the circle. You have to try to win if you're going to make your competitor better. But I don't know how many of you heard of Jordan Peterson? Jordan Peterson? The guy's incredible. So not surprisingly, he described meekness way better than me. This is how Jordan Peterson describes meekness. He said, "In the New Testament, there's a line, the meek shall inherit the earth." This is Jordan Peterson talking. That line always bothered me. No way. That is not right. Meek is not a good word. Or it's moved in the 300 years or so since it's been translated. Meek does not mean meek. That's wrong. What it means is those who have weapons and know how to use them, but still keep them sheathed, shall inherit the earth. That's a lot different, man. That's a lot better. It's so great. One of the things I tell young men, well, young women as well, but the young men really need to hear this more, I think, and I agree with that statement 100%, is that you should be a monster, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You should not do anyone any harm. You should sheathe your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat. Jordan Peterson. No, wrong. You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it. I love that. So where's the balance between trying to win and to develop the whole person? It's in the control. that Peterson talks about. Meekness isn't a lack of passion. Meekness is the direction of that passion, directing your passions toward good. Easier said than done, particularly when you're a very passionate person, like some of us in this room. So that might give you a chance to ponder, how can I become more meek? As a passionate person, I'm not particularly known for concepts like moderation. I've spent a lot of time thinking about control. What does he mean by control? What can help us as swimmers, divers, coaches, parents to keep our passions about youth sports in general and about high school swimming in particular in control and directed toward good? Well, I think I thought of three things. Number one, to be meek, we need some perspective. My favorite passage of the Bible is the parable of the talents. I think you probably all remember the story. The master went on a journey and called his 3 servants, and he gave one of them 5 talents, one of them 2 talents, and one of them 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then the servants with the 5 and the 2 doubled what they had, but the one with the 1 buried his. This is all ringing a bell, right? Then the master returned home, he settled accounts. To the one with the 5 and the 2, he said, and this is my all-time favorite quote in the Bible, I got it hanging in my house. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come share your master's joy." But to the servant who buried his talent out of fear that he might fail, he was not pleased at all. I mean, get this. "You wicked, lazy servant. Throw this useless servant into the darkness outside where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth." And all he did was bury his talent. Probably still a good dude, right? So I've spent a lot of time pondering that. Like, Jesus had only 1,000 days. So I don't think that he said a lot of things that were superfluous. Like, what? So I started to wonder, why would Jesus tell that story? Is there more to our path to heaven than just being a good person? Surely we can be a good person without working hard, without continually trying to improve ourselves, without taking any risks. Can't you be a good person with those things? So it makes me wonder, maybe there's more to being a good person than just being pious, loving, and kind. More to the point we're discussing here is, and I've always wondered this, is there a reason why in the story the master gave a different number of talents to each servant? Now, in my 58 years in the world, I've noticed that it's quite normal to see different people with different levels of abilities on different topics, on various things. So maybe the fact that Jesus told the story that way is sort of implies that different talents are part of God's plan. If God wanted us all to be great swimmers in the objective sense, wouldn't he have made us all 6 feet 5 inches tall with long arms and tiny hips? Clearly, he didn't do that. But it's also interesting to me that the master seemed equally pleased with the 5 talents and the 2 talents. So I think in pondering this, I've come to the inescapable conclusion that number one, there's more to being a good person than just being pious, loving, and kind. And 2, it doesn't matter how many talents you've been given as long as you use them to the best of your ability. And 3, if we have a talent and are afraid to use it, then we just wasted a gift from God. Now, I think back to my own experience. It's less common in today's world, but in my generation, every kid my age, spring came around, we played baseball, right? You played baseball probably? Everyone in this room my age, I promise you played baseball. That was just the norm. Swatting flies in right field. I had an incredibly indistinguished career on the diamond. I entered my final year playing baseball on the 12-year-old team, the Beacon Barbershop at Bucknell. And I was the kid who only got one talent. And we had a kid on the team I was always jealous of, Mike Spittle. Now, Mike Spittle, he was 12 years old, and he had a vein down his bicep. He had hair under his arms. He was left-handed, and he used to use this baseball bat that was, it was a 12-year-old memory, but the end was it was oversized end with a little narrow handle, and it was about 4 feet long. And it was incredible. So when he got up to bat, it seemed like every other hit was a home run over the right field fence. Now, my coach was this guy, this black man named Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Jackson somehow knew what to do with a dorky kid like me and how to get the most out of it. He was the best coach I ever had. Well, I can think of two others. My 80-pound football coach, Mr. Funderburg, which you've all heard me talk about before, and my swimming coach at Bishop Ireton, Harry Sober, which is part of the reason why we practice at 6:04. But Mr. Jackson knew my limitations, and he seemed to find a way to work with the one talent he had. So, for instance, when Mike Spittle was pitching, he put me at third base because no one would ever hit at the third base. They couldn't get the bat around fast enough. But he also found a way for me to be successful at the plate. He gave me a 26-inch bat. I don't know if you ever, 26, that's, a little more than 2 feet. It's like this. He had me stand basically facing the pitcher, and he had my back elbow up really high, and he just told me to take a half swing and hit the ball over second base. And I got really good at that because all I was basically doing was bunting. I'd hit the ball over second base so reliably that the other team started putting someone behind second base. But it was kind of embarrassing, right? Think about it. You want me to face the pitcher with a mini bat? But it worked, and I found my niche. And then I started batting second in the lineup. I was batting second in the lineup, and the reason I was batting second in the lineup is so that people would be on base when Mike Spittle hit the home run. So, because I wasn't going to run around the bases if there wasn't a home run. And so it was. So the point is, I found my niche, right? Somehow there's a place for me with my one talent. Now I got into coaching. It's easy to learn perspective if you have as many kids as I have, because you got chances to lose perspective. And I got involved in swimming with one of my oldest kids, and I got a chance to learn perspective early. When you're a parent, it's super easy to lose perspective when you're a parent. So I had a kid. It's pretty exciting when your kid. I know. I talked to your dad about it. Your kid's state champion, All-America, you get kind of excited about it. Then they go to college, and that's when you get perspective. Like, there's always somebody faster. No matter how good you are, unless you're the best on the planet, there's always somebody faster, right? I'm quite confident that Coach Palazzo got his butt kicked by people in his life, right? They're out there. My adult boys make a lot of fun of my lack of athletic ability. Natural athletic ability, because so many of them have athletic ability. But one thing they'll never doubt, I promise you, they'll never doubt my level of determination. They will almost always perform better than me, but they will never try harder than me. And that's how you should all think, no matter how many talents you got. That's how you should think. No one should out-try you. And that's where you can get some perspective. You try to win like it's the only thing that matters. But if you lose to someone with more talents, as long as you did your best, as long as you've worked the hardest you can to develop the talents God gave you, as long as you came back with 2 or 5 or 1, then you can be completely justified in being happy about someone else's performance. No problem at all. If you swam your best time and you got beat, you're never going to hear me complain. That's where you find the balance. You can be perfectly, in fact, you should be happy about your competitor's performance because they did well too. So to be meek, one important lesson here is don't assign your personal worth to some talent or ability you have. That's not the plan. I love you not because you're a great swimmer or not because you did your best time. I want you to be a great swimmer because I love you. I don't love you less if you're not a great swimmer. I want you to be a better swimmer because I love you. Your worth has nothing to do with how great or not great a swimmer you are. That's perspective. It's that perspective that allows us to be meek, to sheathe your sword because you have the control to know when it's used the best. The second thing that to be meek, we need some confidence. We need to build an inner confidence that you can only get with experiences of overcoming adversity. That's why when I see my own kids encountering adversity, I'm often very slow to react. And I do the same thing with your kids. So don't freak out. I'm harder on my kids than yours. But in fact, I will put you in a difficult situation on purpose. I'm doing it on purpose. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think you can handle it. If I didn't know you can handle it, I wouldn't do it. And that's why I get so upset. There's a couple things that upset me on deck, and one of them is when you try to get out of doing something. And when you go to mom, you go to another coach, oh, let's go talk to mom, because dads are going to say no. No, you're in that event. We're going to swim that event. Don't run. Don't hide. There's a reason you're doing it. And this is the reason. No one can tell you you're not good enough unless you've never put yourself out there. When I tell you to take that first 50 of your 100 out like it's the first 50, I know that's not the best way to swim a race. Swim the first 50 like it's a 50-yard race. But I'm trying to help you find your limit. When I tell you that, when I give you grief because you had too much left in the 500, it's good-natured, but I totally mean it. I'm trying to help you overcome your fear. You're just afraid. Right? Put yourself out there. I love asking swimmers, and I've asked several of you, at what point in the race did your arms go numb? And the most common answer, they look at me like I got one eye. No, every time you swim, your arms should build up enough lactic acid that they get numb. That's what pushing yourself means, which means there's a big PR in you right there just by trying harder. Right? But why don't you do it? You don't do it because you don't have the confidence yet to push yourself in the pain, to risk failure, right? Oh, I'm going to die at the end. Of course you're going to die. It's a high school swim meet. Who cares? You're not actually going to die. Let's find out where you can get, how far you can be. Once you put yourself out there, no one will ever be able to tell you you're not good enough. And you guys have put yourself out there, right? Some of you have competed against the top people in the state in state championship meets. Some of you went out really fast and died at the end of a 200 free. You actually tried it. Some of you completed 200 laps of a CF swim-thon and never thought you could. Some of you swam 500 in full view of the public, full risk of humiliation. Some of you got that reverse dive after backsplatting like 50 times in public, with all your friends laughing. Some of you completed a 100-yard race for the first time. Some of you, remember the first meet at the Freedom Center, those high blocks? You were afraid. I know. It's high, right? Some of you in public went off those blocks. In 2002, I completed an Ironman triathlon. Now, it took me 15 hours and 20 minutes. They closed the course in 16 hours. But I apologize to no man. Not a single one of my boys has done an Ironman triathlon. Even Ross Palazzo hasn't done an Ironman triathlon. I apologize to nobody, and the reason is because I put myself out there. And I found my limit, which was way farther than I thought it could be. Once you've taken the risk and willingly put yourself in a massively uncomfortable situation, you won't need to apologize to any man either. And if you can get there, you can be happy for any competitor. At Seton Swimming, we're not trying to create good boys and girls. We're trying to create strong, generous men and women capable of doing good and thinking of others before themselves. Those are the people whose confidence is hardened by the forged fires of discomfort. It's that confidence that allows you to be meek, to sheath your sword because you know that you know how to use it. And the last one I thought about more recently, but I was pondering being meek. And to be meek, we need some intimacy. Sounds interesting. Intimacy. I was asking some of the other coaches for input as I was preparing for the awards. And I got this great story from Coach Zadnik, Coach Jerry Zadnik. He said, one striking moment I saw this season was a Seton swimmer waiting for his or her heat. She turns to the swimmer behind her in line for the next heat. They meet, chat for a moment before they swim. When the Seton swimmer finishes her swim, she gets out of the water, stayed at the starting block, cheers for the swimmer just behind, she just met from the opposing team, cheers by name. When the second girl got out of the water, she seemed to be beaming like she just made a new best friend. They shook hands, congratulating each other, talked for a bit, and went back to their team smiling. Realize, this is Jerry still talking, realize what just happened. The Seton swimmer reached out, met her opponent, and cheers for a faster swimmer from another team by name. When our young people, still Jerry, when our young people reach outside of themselves like that, it matters. That's exactly what Seton Swimming encourages the swimmers to do by living our gems. Of course, there are no enemies on the pool deck, but that's as close as you get to love your enemies in swimming. Wow. Now, I know it's a bit of a personality thing, but I've gotten to know, like, everybody on all the other teams. And I know a lot of the competitors and swimmers personally. And part of the reason I do it is just more fun to know them. But I remember at States, I got to know this kid. He was swimming in the 50 free, and I was giving him some good-natured grief for breathing like 11 times. He swam 21.84 and breathed 11 times. And so I'm talking to him. He's from Christ Church. And we're having a little chat, and he goes, hey, is Ross Palazzo one of your coaches? I go, yeah, he's right over there. He goes, yeah, Ross Palazzo, I'm from Hudson, Ohio. Ross Palazzo was one of my heroes when I was a kid. So I bring him over and introduce him to Ross. And of course, at finals, we're all cheering for Jackson Keeland, who's, got all-state bronze medal in 50 free, 21. Like, he was smoking. It was great. He only breathed 3 times. So it's a whole lot easier to cheer for your competitor when you know them, right? I'm sure most of you see on the blogs and live streams that I know all the Trinity Christian kids. And I write about them, and hasn't it made our battles with them a lot healthier, a lot more fun, right? Knowing them. Now, you better believe when we lost that conference championship by one point, I was not a happy camper. I'm Still not really a happy camper. But one thing that makes it a whole lot easier was I saw the smiles on their faces. I saw how excited they were. I knew the kid. I knew Noah Yoon, this freshman who just crushed it. Caleb Bang, no one ever heard of him. He was in 8th grade, right? And he was like a difference maker. I saw him throw their coaches in the water. And you know what the Trinity Christian kids did? I went back and analyzed it, and that's when I saw these great things. I didn't just see my mistakes in the way I lined things up. I saw how great they swam. And I'm like, good for them. Good for them. I still don't want to lose, but good for them. They swam really well, and I wrote about a couple of their kids in the blogs, which totally delighted their mothers. Let me tell you, I heard about it. But it's kind of meekness in action, right? I say we compete in a way where we make our competitors better. I think we did that. And what happens when we got to states? Their captains gave me this little bag. And this bag is full of handwritten notes from their team to our team. And I carried one in my pocket the entire state meet from Josh Kim, who put a big Michigan logo on it. You see, now, can we cheer for Trinity Christian? Yeah, we can cheer for Trinity Christian, right? Do we want to beat Trinity Christian? Heck yeah, right? But we can cheer for them because we know them. We have some intimacy. It's that intimacy that allows us to be meek, to sheathe our sword because we just want to make each other better. Basil Maturin, I'm sure you've heard about him. He wrote a book called Christian Self-Mastery. And he said, meekness is the blending of gentleness and strength. A strength that has been won by victory over self and passion. A gentleness that shows that this victory is the outcome of no harshness and bitterness towards self or the world, but of love. Test true meekness by the severest trials to which it can be put, and you will find it no flaw of weakness or harshness, but a dauntless courage of the loftiest kind and inexhaustible gentleness. If we're trying to grow in meekness, bring with you the perspective that comes from our Catholic faith. Bring with you the confidence that comes with experiences and willingly facing and overcoming adversity. Bring with you the intimacy that comes with Jesus' commandment to love your neighbor. And with those tools, I think all of us, swimmers, coaches, and parents, will be better equipped to use our opportunities in high school athletics to grow our children into the strong and generous people that God wants them to be. Thank you.